Hey guys, this is Kerry, and in this video we're going to be introducing the idea of classes as an abstraction on objects to make our objects even more powerful and more simplified. So we've seen how objects can abstract a complex thing like a student into having a couple of keys and values. However, you could imagine that with two students, this isn't too bad to type in all of this information. However, if we start having more and more students, like hundreds of students or thousands of students, depending on whether you're a teacher or school, you may not want to retype in all of these things. Even using copy and paste may be error prone or not very reasonable to do. So we're going to look at defining a class, which is an overall structure for an object, on what it means to be part of that object's class. And that's kind of like a really confusing sounding idea, but I think you'll see in practice how this is a powerful tool. So we're going to save problem1.html. We're going to generate the basic HTML structure with nothing on it. For the body, we're going to take the AP tools and paste them in. And the reason why we're using those is we're going to be using the display function, which doesn't come with JavaScript later on. And we're going to be creating our own script tags. So of course you could type in these students like this, but we just said with thousands of students, it would be a real pain to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to define an overall structure for what it means to be a student object in JavaScript. And the keyword that programming languages use to do this is a class. So some programming languages are very class heavy like Java, others like Python and JavaScript can be used with classes, but we've used it successfully without classes. But here we go. This is what it means to be a member of the student class. And class is not like, computer science class. It's like this type of object student. So in this case, every student comes with a couple of things: their grades, their name, etc. So we're going to do a simplified version of this. When you're defining what it means to be something, first you have to do a constructor method, which is whenever you create a new student, it will automatically run this method and build a new student in the computer's memory. So the constructor method for a student, we're going to do a simplified version, is going to take in a couple of arguments. It's going to take in their first name and their overall grade. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say this dot first name is equal to whatever the first name argument was with a semicolon that they plugged into the constructor method. This dot overall is going to be their overall grade, and it's going to be whatever argument they plugged in. So we're also going to add to this an email method, which is this, or an email attribute, which is this dot email. And let's say their email is going to be equal to whatever the first name was that they plugged in. So this object's first name plus the string at school.school. So let's build a couple of instances. An instance is a specific member of the student class. So let student1 equal, and to build a new student now, instead of having to type all of this in, we would just type new student, and that student's name, following the parameters in the constructor method, is Kerry, and their overall grade is a 64. Let's let student2 equal new student, and that student's name will be Sky, and this dot, and overall is the next argument, so that grade would be 97 based on the information we do now. All right, so let's do a couple of things. Let's start off by console.logging student1 and console.logging student2. This will let us see what these objects actually look like. So saving this, opening this in the browser, view, developer, JavaScript console, and we have two instances of the student object. And if we click this little arrow, it will let us see the keys and the values. And this is pretty amazing. So by creating new student1 here, it followed this constructor method and it defined a first name key with the name Kerry, overall 64, and the email right here. Great. All right, so now let's think about an email that we might want to send to these students to give them an update of how they're doing in the class. So we're going to, instead of displaying those emails here, let's display those emails in the browser right here. So the power of having this class is there's so many powers of having this class. Number one, you can make edits here. So let's say that we want to make an edit and also define a variable called this dot. Well, let's leave that off for later. One of the powers of having this class is that we can not just attach attributes to it, but also attach functionality to each of the students. So one functionality might be get email. So when we run the get email method, maybe it's a very simple method, and all we want to do is we want to display on the screen this dot email. So what's amazing is by adding this to the overall structure of what it means to be a student, each of our students will now come with a function called getEmail. So to run that function, let's delete these console.logs. You can do a student1.getEmail. And this student1, because it's being created from the student class, automatically comes with a getEmail method. So saving this and refreshing it, it displays the student email. If we do student2.getEmail, because the student was constructed from the same template, it also comes with a getEmail function. And student2's email is the correct email because it's displaying this with the keyword this for the current instance of that student. And what's powerful about this is every student that we make will come with all of these tools. So I don't know, Alex, let's say he has a 78. So then if we do a student3.getEmail, even though Alex was created after making the student class, he comes with every single method that students come with. So he can also display his email. Okay, so continuing on, let's create a more powerful version of this. So let's do a get, let's say the get email is not just displaying their email, it's going to display the email, their name, and then the message that we're going to send them. So let's start by displaying their name. So just to display their name, we display this dot first name. And then we want to display their email address. So it's going to be like Carrie at school.school. And then next up, it's going to be whatever the email is. So let's let email equal your current grade in the class is a plus this dot overall plus period. And then lastly, we need to display the email. And the power of doing this is by changing this email method just once, because it's bound to the student object or the student class, it will alter it in all three of these, and so we get the new get email method for all of them. So Carrie, and look, we've got emails addressed to all of the students with their email addresses. And then lastly, you could think, well, maybe you want to make this a little bit more complex, or a little, a little more complex. Well, to change it, you just change it once and it will automatically change for all these. So let's say if if this dot overall is less than 65, let's add to the email an important message, which is you are currently in danger of failing. Please make sure to address this before the semester is over. So let's see, by changing that once here, if we refresh this, if we save this and we refresh it, I'm wondering why it's not displaying for Carrie. And then the reason why is I did a really bad job of constructing this. It wasn't just the string. We should have said email is equal to whatever the email was going to be plus that string. So now if we save it and we refresh it, it looks like Carrie has a little bit more complex of an email based on his failing status, and the other two have a more simple email. So you could build this with more and more complexity, but the important idea is we've defined now something called a class, which is a tool used to create objects with a certain set of attributes and a certain set of functions. And they can have as many functions as they want. So here we had the get email function, but we could have had a ton of different ones, as many as we wanted. So I hope this introduced you to the idea of classes, and we'll be using this to build our game.